Okay, we're doing an Air Canada quote, and I'm recording this so that anybody can watch it later. This is one for Chelvam, and let's see, May is working on it. So we're going to make sure it says researching. I've come back to review it for her to help her with it. So I'm in a quote that she's doing. It has her name on it. So if we end up sending a quote, she'll get credit for it. This is one that she started and got stumped or got stuck on how to finish it. So I'm changing it back to researching instead of no inventory, so we can try again with her. So we're going to go to Air Canada first, click on use your miles and travel, and May, just let me know if you see me doing something different than what you tried to do, just for learning.
Okay.
So of course we're going to log in at Air Canada, and gotta wait here. It's thinking up here. This is still spinning at the top right here.
I didn't do flights from Guatemala to Singapore.
Okay. On Air Canada, it's best to check it all the way. You don't have to check it leg by leg on Air Canada like you do on Asia Miles. So on Air Canada, we're going to check it all the way, Guatemala to Singapore. And the departure date is the 2nd of September. If you're using Asia Miles or Cathay Pacific, then you do have to check it. Well, actually, let me rephrase that. On Air Canada, first we find it all the way. And then on Air Canada, if we find out it's available all the way, then yes, we do have to go back and check it leg by leg to make sure it really is available. So let me start with finding out if it's available all the way. With Air Canada, you don't have to do it as a round trip. You can do it as 2 one-ways if you want. There are some airlines where you have to do it as a round trip if you want the best result. For example, Asia Miles and Emirates, you have to do it as a round trip if you want the best result. But on Air Canada, a one-way going and a one-way coming back, adding the two together comes out to the same thing as if you do it as a round trip, so it really doesn't matter. So I'm going to search it as a one-way to start with so that I can just kind of think about which part of it I want to start with. Guatemala to Singapore, Saturday, September 2nd. The date's not flexible, and we're just going to see if it's available. Now, another way you can check this quickly is to do the same thing on KVS. So if I go to KVS, let's see. If I go to KVS and put in the same thing, Guatemala to Singapore, and this will also tell me, if it's available. But really, the only reason to go to KVS is if I know the date's flexible, because if the date's not flexible, then I'm just going to go with what it says on the Air Canada website anyway. The purpose of KVS is mainly, see how I can click on September 2nd, and this is for 2 people. And if I want to, I can open up another KVS and do the same thing for a different date, or I can click the up arrow or the down arrow to go to another date quickly. So usually when you use KVS, it's because you're trying to use different airlines or you're trying to use different dates. If you're just checking one airline for one date, then you don't need KVS at all. You just go straight to the airline website and just check that one date. But as a demonstration, I'm going to use KVS also just to see. Okay, so KVS says CS Plus, there's a Y there, which is not good. So we're going to skip that. There's another Y right here, so we're going to skip that. So none of these are available all the way. So you were correct in abandoning this, because right away KVS tells me that there's nothing available all the way. As a double check, let's check that on the Air Canada website. See, every single one of these have economy mixed in here. Oh, here's one that's first in business. This one didn't show up on KVS, but it has a 12-hour layover in Los Angeles. And plus the customer said he does not want to change planes in the USA. So that eliminates this one. One of the things he said is he doesn't want to change planes in the United States. So if we look at these, this one changes planes in LA, so it's disqualified right away. This one does also. and this one does also, and this one does also. So all of the Air Canadas, oops, here's El Salvador, there's Chicago.
I choose that flight, though it has an economy since it's
Yeah,
short trip.
but the problem is it goes to Chicago, which is part of the United States, and he doesn't want to do that. He wants to avoid the United States. So you were correct in saying that this Air Canada is not available. There's two different ways I can tell it's not available. First of all, in KVS, there's nothing that's all CS plus all the way, or a mixture of CS plus and FS plus. Besides that, every single one of these, LA, hold on just a minute. Hold on. Sorry, I got called away for a minute. Okay, so there's two reasons we know that it's not available in Air Canada. First of all, KVS shows this is going through Los Angeles, this one's going through Houston, this one's going through, oh, this one's not going through the United States. But
what I did is I looked for a flight from Guatemala to Mexico. That's one of his options. So yeah.
Yeah, but it's better to look for it all the way, all at once at first, rather than trying to do it leg by leg at first. So this one is Guatemala to El Salvador to Mexico City to Tokyo. So this one would be perfect, except it's not business class. Two of the legs are in Y, which is economy. So this one would be perfect. And then we would go to the Air Canada website to get it, but it's not perfect because it's got Y here instead of CS plus. It's got YS plus. And this one down here is not good because it's 4 flights instead of, 1 or 2 or 3. And it's also not good because 2 of the flights are in Y. So when we look at KVS, we already know it's no good because either it goes through the USA or else it has long Y-class flights, which we don't want. Besides that, when we looked at the Air Canada site, we found out the same thing. It's not available. So you were correct in putting over here that Air Canada is no inventory. Now, I want to show you something. Closed, no inventory, Air Canada. Okay, now if you want to, you can use this very same quote to do another quote. And if you want to do that, let me show you what to do. So first of all, we have it started for this fellow. It has your name on it. It says you're using Air Canada. So you'd go down here to the workflow. If you want to use this exact same quote and do another quote, since you didn't send this, it doesn't count anyway until you're able to send it. So it's better if you decide to try another airline and see if you can send it. So temporarily, this is Air Canada. It's closed, no inventory. You don't get credit for it. You don't get paid for it because it was not available. You couldn't send it. And let's say you want to earn a commission. Or not a commission, but you want to earn $1 for doing this one. What I can do is go down here and put on here that you completed it and there was no inventory. So now everybody knows that you tried Air Canada and there was no inventory. If you left it like this, they would also see it up here that there's no inventory. But because you put it down here in the workflow checklist and you let everybody know that you tried Air Canada, there was no inventory, you can now go ahead and use this one for a different one, for a different airline. So I'm going to leave this open and see if we can find another airline that we can use to go ahead and send this quote so that we can earn $1 instead of earning nothing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to KVS, and when you use KVS, one second. the purpose of KVS is either to search different dates for somebody or to search different airlines. There's really no reason to use KVS usually unless you're trying to find a different date or a different airline that's available. So in this case, his date's not flexible. So what we're going to do instead of looking for a different date is look for a different airline. Okay, so another airline that we can try and use is NH, and we can hit go here. Another airline on the one on the right we can try and use is the next one down, M&M. We can click go there. You can try every single one of these in the list and see if anything has CS Plus and FS Plus all the way. So right now I'm using KVS because Air Canada was not available and I had to abandon it. And I marked my quote, no inventory, and I marked the workflow list, no inventory. Now I'm going to use KVS to search and see if I can find a different airline. I'm not going to look for a different date because his date's not flexible. I'm going to stay on the same date and just keep looking for a different airline. To do that, I just keep going down the list and try them all. This M&M one I'm trying, and it's not done thinking yet. See down here it says waiting for response, transferred, blah, blah. It's still thinking. So the one on the right is still thinking, the one on the left is thinking, and I'm just changing the airline as I go down the list to try and find one that has CS Plus or FS Plus available all the way. This is not going to tell me, okay, these both said they don't have it. To get an error code, that means they don't have it. Okay, so then we're going to try this one, and we're going to try the next one, just going right down the list to try them all, looking for CS Plus and FS Plus or a combination or either or. CS Plus or FS Plus all the way. F stands for first class, C stands for business class. The S means it's cheap, super cheap, or saver, and the plus means it's available. So we want C business class or F first class. We want S saver, which is like super cheap, and we want plus or a number, which means it's available. So we tried all of these so far. Now we're going to, that one I don't have a membership number in because I don't really use it much. So then I'm going to just skip that one and go down to this one. And this one over here, I'm going to go down to the one below that and just keep going. So it's starting to look like we're going to strike out on this one and abandon it completely. And if we do that, I'll show you what to put in the workflow checklist. Okay, this one says route too complex, no availability. That means, it just means it's not available. And the one on the left is CX, which is another name for Asia miles. And the one on the right is available, but look, it's going through Atlanta, Atlanta, Atlanta. These are all in the US and he doesn't want to do that. Los Angeles, Seattle, Seattle, LA. So that one's no good because they all go through the United States and he doesn't want to do that. So we're going to try Alitalia next. And on this one on the left, we're going to try Alaska Air, which is AS. Just try them all. Okay, here's one that's available, but it goes through Los Angeles. So that's no good. He doesn't want to do that. So we're going to change that to another one. The one on the left is AS, still thinking. It says it's invalid, so we're going to go to another one. And we just have one left to try. Okay. Now, so we struck out on every single one. Now we still have one more trick we can try before we give up. So every single one of these are not available. So we have one more trick we can try before we give up. We can go to a website called matrix.itasoftware.com and we can put the flights in there and see if it gives us an idea that we didn't think of. So we're going to go Mexico City to Singapore, and the date. Notice I'm just working on the outbound at first, because if the outbound is not available, then usually the rest is not available either. You can try and get the return separately, but I always find the outbound first and I worry about the return later. You can use any airline for the return, any airline that's available. It doesn't have to be the same airline as the outbound, but there's no sense looking for a return until you find an outbound, is the way I look at it. if I can't get them there, there's no need to try and get them home. So what I'm doing right now is looking at Mexico City to Singapore in Matrix, because I'm looking for ideas that I may not have thought of on the other one. Okay, this is ANA. I tried ANA in the award calculator. I tried all of these in the award calculator. So this is telling me that I tried all of these. Okay, so what's my next choice? My next choice is to click this button right here that says nearby airports to Mexico City, and I can try, somewhere else, even something within 1,000 miles, and see if there's somewhere else that I could think of to fly from other than Mexico City. And if I can, then I'll get a separate, different flight to get from Mexico City to that other city. So I can look down this list of cities that are 1,000 miles from Mexico City, and I've got to pick one that's not in the United States. And I already know from experience that if I'm not going to go to the United States and I'm going to go to Singapore, what I probably need to do is go to Brazil first. And things like that you'll learn from experience, either Brazil or Panama City. In fact, did you say he mentioned some cities he could go through? Probably.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's see if any of these go through there. See this right here? It says Houston is where it stops. So I'm looking for anything that's not in America. I already tried Air Canada, so that's out. San Francisco, these are all in America, or the US, I mean. And so those are out. And at this point, you could ask me for help or ask the salesperson that you're working for help. And you're going to find out, I'm going to see if I can find it in here, because I just happen to know another way to get to Singapore besides these. Normally, you'd see a city in here other than the United States where you could change planes. Oh, here's Tijuana. That's not the United States. But we already tried these airlines. The partners of these airlines, they're not available. So the next step, so that was the next trick, is to try and find it in here, an airline that you didn't think of, and we just tried that. We struck out. So now the next step is to start from a completely different city, based on your experience. And for example, you can try going from GRU to Singapore. I'm going to click this advanced routing codes. If they're going to Singapore, obviously what we'd really like to do is get them on Singapore Airlines. So I'm going to put, show me anything on Singapore Airlines that goes from Brazil to Singapore. I'm just checking to see if they fly that route on that date. Looks like they don't. So we'll try from Rio de Janeiro. So it looks like we're striking out on this one. So I think you did right in giving up. If you're going to Singapore, the logical thing is to try and use Singapore Airlines to get there. That's their headquarters. But they don't fly from Sao Paulo or from Rio that day. We'll put or the next day, because they could start the trip that day and continue on the next day. I'm kind of surprised that they don't fly from GRU. Just see. Let me see. So notice what I'm doing is I'm just trying to start in some other city other than Mexico City. And I'm not going to worry about the short part until I find the long part. So then the only other place really that's logical is to try it from Panama to Singapore and see who flies that. And then we'll also check the cities that he mentioned. Let's see. He mentioned, Madrid, Panama, Mexico, or San Salvador. Okay, let's write those down. So Madrid, Panama, Mexico City. Oh, I forgot about Mexico City or San Salvador. Oh, that's right. He was starting in Guatemala. I was thinking he was starting in Mexico City. Okay. All right. So we never tried Mexico City. So what we can do is you can also try Mexico City and go down through the list again. So Mexico City to Singapore, and this one we'll try from Let's see, Panama, Mexico City. We'll try from Panama. And so what I'm doing is I'm trying this Mexico City to Singapore. Yeah, so we were starting in Guatemala. I was thinking we were starting in Mexico City. So we're starting in Guatemala. So obviously a nearby city would be Mexico City to Singapore. And the date's not flexible, but the airline is flexible. So I'm going to use this same date and go down all the way through the airlines. Here's that goes through Houston. That's no good. Goes through Canada, but there's a bunch of Y's. So Air Canada is not available again from Mexico City. And this one is from Panama. It goes through the US, so we'll skip that one. And we'll go down. I know the one that flies to Panama is this one, so I'm going to try this one first. And Mexico City, nothing here, so we'll try this one over there too. You just fish around and try them all, different cities, different airlines, until you find it. I'm spending some extra time on this one just as a demonstration. Normally you just do a quick search on all the most likely ones and then move on. But I'm doing a really thorough deep search, just for training purposes, so that you can see that if you're really persistent, sometimes you come up with something. So that one's not available. Yeah, none of these are going to be available going that way. Yeah, so this is not Mexico City. What did I try? CX already? Yeah, you just keep trying them. There's no CS Plus. With Air France, you can use CS Plus or you can use CX Plus, but none of those are that anyway. So it looks like nothing's available from Mexico City or Panama. So the other choices he said, let's see, oh, here's something. Okay, so here's something using Air France, which means you might find it on Delta also because they're partners. So Mexico City to Singapore. Here's a CS Plus on Air France. So that's the outbound available. This is AF up here, means Air France. It's from Mexico City to Singapore, which means we'll have to get a flight from Guatemala to Mexico City from Matrix, and that would go in the extra flights. This one goes through Atlanta, so that's out. So we found the outbound on Air France. So now we're looking for the return. So for the return, we hit the swap button, and we might as well go back to Mexico City using Air France if we can. Singapore back to Mexico City, and this is on the 14th of September. So we'll save this one as the outbound. We know we can go to the Air France website and get that one. And here's the return using Air France also. And I'm going to check. Anytime you get something on Air France, it's good to also check and see if it's available on Delta, because sometimes it costs less, and also Alitalia, because all three of those are partners. But see, this one goes through the US, 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 US. So it's not offering it the same thing. But you can see these three here in the middle here that go, it says SkyTeam. That means all three of those go together. And if you find it on one, you might find it also on another one. And the reason to look for it on another one, if you've already found it, is sometimes it costs less and you can give the customer a better price if you find it on a partner. So when you find one that's in one of those groups, you check the rest of the airlines in the group also. See, this is also available on Alitalia, which means that this one over here might also be on Alitalia available. And then that way we can check it both on Air France and on Alitalia, see which one is better for the customer and send a better quote. So this one didn't have the outbound. And Alitalia doesn't allow one-way trips. So because we didn't find it both ways on Alitalia, we're going to have to use Air France for both ways. Some airlines allow you to piece together one-way trips and some don't. And so we found it both ways on Air France. Okay, so KVS told us that we're probably going to find it on Air France both ways. So we're going to go to Air France and instead of Air Canada. Okay, so we found out, hey, we're going to do this on Air France. So right away, we're going to go over here and claim Air France so that nobody else does it. AF both ways. In other words, round trip, and we're researching it at this point. So we changed that Air Canada one to Air France because we don't need it as Air Canada anymore. We already marked in here we did Air Canada, but now we're going to double click this and put that we're working on it so that nobody else does. And let's see, where is it? Melania, right? Melanie? Okay.
Yes, sir.
And we're put...
by the way, sir, it means that the longer trip will be the outbound, even though it's starting from Guatemala.
Oh yeah, we still have to add the flights to get from Guatemala to Mexico City. In fact, let's just double check and make sure we can't get those from Air France already.
But the outbound would be from Mexico to Singapore. And extra trip will be from Guatemala to Mexico.
Right. Mm-hmm. That's right. Oh, that's economy. Okay. So it wasn't available from Guatemala. So that's why we're using Mexico City both ways. But like you said, we have to get from Guatemala to Mexico City. So to do that, we do that at the end after we see what times the flights are that we need. So you get the longest part of the trip first. So we're going to go to Air France first. One moment. Just making a note so that when I put this recording in the library, I know that it contains Air France as an explanation. Okay, so we're going to go to Air France. Get your own account to log in with. And click on use your miles. And it's two people. See how it's got this mark, this account holder's name checked? The account holder is not traveling, so you have to uncheck that. The person who's providing the miles is not traveling. When you uncheck that, it shows first pass. See how down here it says second passenger right now because it thinks that this person up here is the first passenger. If you uncheck that, then they know that that person is not traveling, so they know you have first passenger, adult, 18 years old, second passenger, adult, 18 years old. It doesn't matter the ages because all of our tickets are the same price. If they're age 2 or older, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, age 10, 15, 16, adults, seniors, everybody gets the same price from us. Everybody gets the same discount. So you never have to put children or babies or seniors or anything like that. Everybody's the same price from us. So you just put everybody's an adult. Even if 2 of them are children, you just put everybody's an adult. Because when they buy tickets from us, they're all the same price. Business class, find a flight. Barcelona, San Francisco. Oops, I got the wrong cities in there, don't I? May, do you have an Air France account yet?
I haven't, sir, but I'll try later too.
Okay. The reason I ask is that I need to take a break. So what I'm going to do is stop this recording and let you work on this yourself, and then I'll come back and start the recording again and I'll either do it for you or help you or review yours depending on how far you got. But what you want to do is, here, let me save this. Reason is I'm out of time right now and I need to go do something. So I'm going to stop the recording and then I'm going to continue the recording a bit later to show everybody what to do from here. Just one moment. Okay, so we are looking at finding a flight from Guatemala City to Singapore, and the information of what we want is here in the request notes. Let me get back to that. So this customer wants to go from, let's see, you guys can see my screen okay, right? You're looking at Chelvam on your screen. You can see it okay, right, May?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what we want is from Guatemala City to Singapore on the 2nd of September, back the 14th of September, business class, 2 people. There's the details. Do not have American visa. Please get quotes that do not go through the United States. Okay, so that's what we're working on. And so the first thing we did was we tried Air Canada and it was not available through there. So then we checked all the other airlines in KVS. We came to Air France and we found out that it's available on Air France. Here's the outbound. We didn't go from Guatemala City because it was not available from there. So we started the trip in Mexico City, which is a nearby place that we can get a, we can get a quote to. Okay. So because we couldn't find it from Guatemala City to Singapore, next we tried a nearby city, went from Mexico City to Singapore. And we found out on Air France that it's available with CS Plus, which is what we're looking for, either CS Plus or FS Plus. And for the return, we found out it's available on Air France as CS Plus also. And we looked and we noticed that these flights do not go through the United States, which is good. That's what he wants. And so then we found out on KVS that it's available from Air France. So we used KVS to find out which airline it was available on. The purpose of KVS is to either find out a different date that it's available on or a different airline that it's available on. If you're not sure of which airline has it available, you use KVS. If you're not sure which date is available, you use KVS, because it's an easy way to switch from one airline to another and from one date to another to check a lot of different possibilities in a quick hurry. So what we did already is we found out it's available on Air France by using KVS. We tried different airlines. We didn't try different dates because his date's not flexible. But instead of trying different dates, we tried different airlines. We found out Air France is available. So to get Air France, we go to the Air France website. To go to Air France, you just go to airfrance.com or airfrance.us.com or whatever, and sign up for your own free account and then log in. And then we searched for the flights and we found out that these flights are available. This one on the top says Classic Awards 100,000 miles. Be careful, this is one way for one person when it shows it to you on the Air France site. One way for one person. So be careful not to split that, thinking it's for 2 people. Okay, so this is the flight details. What I'm going to do is I'm going to write down these flight numbers, or you can copy and paste them. So this one is Aeromexico flight 098. So it'll let me copy it. So I'm going to copy that and put it over in here into Matrix so that I can use Matrix to get what we call the pretty flights. So this is going to be a round trip. And by the way, when you get the flights, the pretty flights from Matrix, you don't have to search it as a round trip. You can search it as a one-way just to make it easier for you to copy and paste them in more easily. So we have from Mexico City to Guatemala City, we're going to put in our flight number, EM098, and we're going to get the other flight number because it's going to Shanghai and changing planes there before it gets to Singapore. And this is the next flight number that I'm going to get, and I'm going to put it in Matrix to get the pretty flights. You put a space, oops, Control Z if you did something by mistake and it puts it back again, just hit Control Z. You put a space here and then the next flight, Okay, so this is one way, Mexico City, Aeromexico to Guatemala. And because that's, oops, I got the wrong date in there, I think. Let me hit modify search, go back to the 2 of September. I don't care about the times. I'm going to put no preferred times. I'm going to put the 2 of September because I already know the flight numbers are in up here. And I want business class because that's what Air France offered me. You get the class on Matrix that matches what was offered on the airline website, but it doesn't matter. See, this is business class and business class. It doesn't matter if I copy it as business class because I can always edit it later. So even if this gives me first class or something else, I can still copy it later. It's best to uncheck this when you're just using it to get pretty flights. You have to leave that box checked if you're using it to get cash flights. So let's see, Mexico City. Oh, it's to Singapore, not to Guatemala City. By the way, before I started this video, I already went and got the piece that goes from Guatemala City to Mexico City, because he's starting his trip in Guatemala City, but yet the flight on Air France starts in Mexico City. So I have to get a flight to get him from Guatemala City to Mexico City, and that's what this is. And I got that from Matrix by leaving that box checked, because I want to know about flights that are really for sale for money, because we're just going to buy that short flight with money instead of buying with miles, just to make it a complete trip. So what I did is I put in here from Guatemala City to Mexico City. And I had to do it the day before to make the connection. So instead of September 2nd, it's going to be September 1st in order to get there in time for the other flight. We're just going to go with the cheapest flight because it's just a short 2-hour flight. We always want to see our prices in US dollars, so I always put USD here. You leave this box right here checked if you're using it for a connecting flight where we're buying it with money instead of miles. You have to leave that checked because we need to know that it's really for sale for money and not for miles. So this is from Guatemala City to Mexico City. We need to get a flight that gets there at least 2.5 to 3 hours ahead. So that means we need one that arrives at like 9 something at night. So here's one right here. And so then we copy this, we call that our pretty flight, and then we get this price, $423. So the pretty flight, I've already done that. I've already copied that in here. And then the $423, I've already put that on the award calculator before I started this video. In order to put it on there, if it's a cash flight, we're not buying with miles, you click right here where it says click to expand. That's extra flights. We call it our extra flights, meaning those are flights we could not buy with miles. We had to buy them with money just to complete the trip. So click to expand to put it in there, and you can see I've got it in here already. Guatemala to Mexico City, and there's the 424 that Matrix is quoting me for it. Right here, 423.47. It doesn't have to be to the penny, so I just put 424 because these prices fluctuate a little bit. And the price that we're giving them is always subject to a little bit of a change depending on what's available at the time of booking. One moment. Okay. One moment. Just got to answer somebody's question. They're asking me a question in Skype. Okay. Welcome, Sanja. Okay, so let's see, where were we? So we got the connecting flight to get from Guatemala City to Mexico City. So next we need to get the flights from Air France, Mexico City to Singapore. And on Air France, That's AM 98 and MU 565, okay? So we put those in here. I'm just gonna do it as a one way to make it easier. I've got the right date, business class, no limit on the stops. I don't wanna buy these with money, so I'm gonna uncheck that and we'll hit search. And whenever you get to this page, always hit the duration button first and sort by duration and then close that. That brings the ones to the top that are the shortest trip, which is usually the one you want. Usually you don't want this 77-hour trip by accident because that has a long layover somewhere, a day or two. See, it has 53-hour layover here. And the one that we want is the one that matches what Air France is offering us, which has 1 hour and 40 minutes layover and 5 hours layover. We look at the Air France website. This one matches the times, 1:44 a.m., 8:10 p.m., and the dates match. You have to match the times, the layover, and the dates. So there's the times, there's the layover, and the date also matches, which is September 2. There's the date right there. So we match the date, we match the flight numbers, the times, and the most important thing is to match this layover, 5 hours and 5 minutes. So we've got one here that matches the dates, the times, the flight numbers, and the layover. So we hit the price of it on the far left. And it doesn't matter what this says over here. This could say economy, it could say first class, because we're going to change those to match what Air France offered us anyway. We're only using this to get pretty flights. You click as close as you can to the black line, hold the shift, then click at the end and it highlights everything for you. Then you hit Control-C to copy it. And then you go paste it into the quote. To get it into the quote, you click after what you've already got there and see this black line that shows up and it's flashing. When you see that black line, you hit the Enter key. That moves your cursor down here where you want it in place for the next one. So you click to the right in the white area, look at the black line flashing, hit Enter, then hit Control-V like Victor to paste it in there. Don't stretch it to try and make it fit. Just hit Save Itinerary, okay? And then get rid of these symbols of the sun and the moon and the knife and the fork. Now see how this says business class, business class, business class. See how this says flight 98 twice? That means that's all one flight number, but it just stops for gasoline in Tijuana, Mexico. Now that may not show that on the Air France website, but it's still true, it still happens. You still leave it like that because Matrix has the correct information in terms of stopovers. This one up here on Air France may not mention that it goes to Tijuana along the way. See, it says it goes from Mexico City to Shanghai. They're not bothering to tell you that it stops in Tijuana, but it does, and Matrix knows that. But still, we have the right time. It leaves at 1:44, gets there at 9:30. If we go look at the flight that we got, it leaves at 1:44. Gets there at 9:30. So it's the right one. Plus it's the same flight number all the way. And the fact that it has an extra stop here in Tijuana, they call that a hidden stop. Air France just didn't bother telling you that it's going to go from Mexico City to Tijuana and then to Shanghai. But you can tell it's the right flight because it's got the same flight number here, the same flight number here. And even though it has an extra stop that Air France didn't tell you about, it still leaves at 1:44 a.m. It still gets there at 9:30 a.m. It's the right flight. It's called a direct flight instead of a nonstop. A nonstop would go straight from Mexico City to Shanghai without stopping. That's a nonstop. A direct flight means that it uses the same flight number, but it makes a stop along the way to pick up gasoline and passengers. So this is a direct flight, but it's not a nonstop. Nonstop doesn't stop anywhere. Direct flight stops somewhere to pick up people and gasoline. But because it continues on with the same flight number, that's why Air France is allowed to call it, allowed to treat it as if it's just one flight, even though secretly behind the scenes it's gonna be two flights. That's why if Matrix gives it to you as two flights, you accept it that way because it's the truth. In fact, if we look it up on KVS, you'll see, oh, even KVS leaves out that stop. That's interesting. Even KVS, see this column that says ST? It's supposed to have a 1 there. The reason it doesn't is because Air France didn't put it there either. They didn't mention that it's a stop. but it is. The airlines cheat sometimes. They say, yeah, you have a direct flight, but what they really mean is you have a flight that stops somewhere and takes off again with the same flight number, and that's why it's called a direct flight. It's not a nonstop. Direct and nonstop are not the same thing. Direct flight makes a stop somewhere to pick up people and gasoline, and they may not even tell you about it before you take off. They just land and pick up more people and get gasoline and take off again. And because it's the same flight number and all the same ticket, they can call it a direct flight, even though it's not a nonstop flight. Anyway, so that's the story behind that. So we got that flight in there, which is a direct flight, but not a nonstop. And then here's our other flight number. So we got everything in there. When we look at the Air France website, everything's in business class. So this is what we make it match to in the quote. If this said economy up here and this said business, then no matter what Matrix says in our quote, this would say economy and this says business, no matter what Matrix says. Matrix is only giving us a pretty picture, but we're going by what the reward website says as to whether it's business class, economy, or what. So Air France says it's business class, so I'm going to make sure it says business class. And I always add the word class because I think it sounds better. And then on any long flights, you want to look it up and see if it's a fully flat bed. Here's a long flight, 13 hours. That's the only one I really need to look up. These other ones that are 4 or 5 hours, 3 hours, 6 hours, you don't need to look those up. This is 2 hours. You don't need to look those up. We don't care if it's a flat bed on a 3-hour flight or a 5-hour flight. But this 13-hour flight, we do care if it's a flat bed. So to find out if it's a flat bed, we look up Aeromexico flight 98 for September 2nd. And to do that, we're going to go to a website called Seat Guru and see if it'll tell us. So we want Aeromexico. Usually you can just put in the AM98 and it'll pull it up, hopefully. If it doesn't, then we'll have to go pick Aeromexico. Yeah, it pulled it up. Okay, then you click View Map. And see, it's 180 degrees flatbed seat. You have to be careful and notice whether this plane has first class or not. This plane does not have first class on it, which means that this front cabin is considered business class. If there's no first class, then the front cabin is considered business class. So even though this says class premier, you know that that's not first class, it's really business class because there's not another second cabin up here that says first class. See, it's got main cabin economy and only one other cabin. If it only has one other cabin besides economy or premium economy, then it's automatically business class no matter what they call it. They could even call it first class, but it's still business class if it only has one cabin in front. Here's economy in the back, and the front cabin is just one cabin. That means it's business class no matter what they call it. Even if it says first class here, it's really business class if there's only one cabin in the front. You never have real true first class without having 3 cabins on the plane, and sometimes 4 cabins if they have premium economy. So because this only has 3 cabins, I automatically know that this class premier is really business class, and now I know that it's a flatbed. So I'm going to call it business class. I'm not going to call it premier class. I'm not going to call it first class. It's really business class, but it is a fully flat bed. And I can even put 180 degrees here if I want to. You can write 180 degrees. Oops. You could write 180 degrees and spell it out. Or if your computer has the symbols, the Alt key feature, on mine it's Alt 0176, and it puts the little degree symbol there for me. So you can just figure out on your keyboard what the Alt key symbol is, the Alt key code is for that little degree symbol. If you don't have it, just type out the word degrees, or you can just put flatbed and leave that off totally. Just say business class flatbed is good enough. Okay, now I'm going to save that part of it. One moment. Okay, so I got this cash flight from Matrix. I got this flight from Air France. And now I'm going to go get my other flight from Air France. And my other flight, by the way, before this times out, I want to show you that the total miles for 2 people down here is 2 people, 400,000 miles plus the taxes. So before it times out, let me show you that I've already put that in my award calculator before I started the, you put 400 here, tab, you put in the taxes, which are 1029.08, and that's already in US dollars. But because Air France says 2 passengers here, I know that that miles covers 2 passengers. Remember up here I said it's one way for one person? 100,000 miles is one way for one person. So one person round trip is 200,000 miles, and round trip for 2 people is 400,000 miles plus the taxes. You put that in the award calculator, and because it's covering 2 people, you hit the split button and just put the 2 there that is covering 2 people. Okay, and then I've got this already down here is already for one person, so I don't need to split it. And then on the way back, I'm going to put another cash flight in there to get them back. But let's go get the rest of the Air France flights first. Okay, so here's the outbound part. We already got that. Now we go down to the return part. Here's your return flight, Singapore to Mexico City. And here's the flight number, GA088. So I'm going to get that. And in Matrix, I don't have to do it as a round trip. I've already got the outbound part, so I can modify this and just do a one-way back again. I'm going to click reverse route to go Singapore back to Mexico City, and I'm going to put this flight number in here that I got from Air France. And I'm going to go get the other flight number and get that one. Let's see, what am I doing? Matrix. Get the other one. You hit the space bar and then Control V to space it in there. And this is now on September 14th. And I don't want to buy it with money, so I'm going to uncheck this. And no limit on the stops, business class or higher. Again, this doesn't really matter if this says business class or what. So if it didn't find it under business class, I'm going to try it, just get the cheapest flight and see if it will get it that way. Because I can edit it later. It's still not finding it, so let me see what I need to do. September 14th. I have the right flight number, GA088, KLM. Am I on the right date? Yep, September 14th. Okay, let's see what could be wrong. September 14th, Singapore to Mexico City. Maybe it doesn't like this 0, so I'll get rid of this the 0 here and see if it doesn't like that. Got the right day. I don't want day after. I want on this day only. It doesn't matter what the class of service is because I can edit that. No limit. Okay, let's see if it'll find it this time. Okay, it didn't find it, so I'm going to have to break it up further and just go look at Air France and see where it goes. It goes from Singapore to Amsterdam first. Okay, so I'm going to just try and get this Singapore to Amsterdam one all by itself. So I'm going to go Singapore to Amsterdam, and I'll just try that flight number, the first flight number by itself, because this other flight isn't going to Amsterdam, just this one flight, and see if I can get it to say business class on this one. Okay, we found it. Hit details. So this is just one piece of it. So we're going to hit the price to get the pretty flight. Click as close as you can to the black line and copy it. And this is just one piece, so we're going to have to go get the other piece. So I click over here in the right area, make sure I see the black line flashing here. Then I hit enter and then Control V to paste it in there. Don't stretch it, just hit save itinerary and get rid of the sun and the moon and the knife and the fork and the movies. This is business class, and again, it doesn't matter what Matrix said. What matters is that the Air France website says that it's business class right here. So I'm going to make this match. If that said economy, I would make it say economy. If that said whatever, I would make it say whatever. Okay, so I got that one flight. So now I need KLM flight 685 that goes from Amsterdam to Mexico City. See this Amsterdam right here to Mexico City? So that's the next piece that I'm going to get. For some reason, it wouldn't give it to me all at once, so I'm just going to get it in pieces. So I'm going to click reverse route because now I'm going from Amsterdam to Mexico City. And the flight number is the one I copied out of Air France, KLM. I have to see what date it is to see if we flew overnight and we're on a different day now. It started at 1:30 in the morning, so we're still on the same day. If it was the next day, it would say +1 here. Okay, so it's still the same date. So we're going to put the same date in here. And it found it. So we'll click details, make sure it's the right one. Yep, it's the right one. Doesn't matter what it says business or what here because I can edit it. Doesn't matter what the price is because I'm not buying it with money, I'm buying it with miles. And I click to the right of the lowest flight, make sure the black line's flashing, hit enter, and Control V to paste it in. Don't try and stretch it around, just save it and get rid of the knife and the fork and the movies and everything. If it's a flight that's like 13 hours or something, we need to find out if it's a flatbed. So here's one that's 13 hours. If it's over about, let's say, 8 hours, you want to find out if it's a flatbed. This one also we want to find out if it's a flatbed. This one's 13 hours, this one's 11 hours. So both of these, we'd like to find out if they're flatbed. So this is Garuda Flight 88. So we're going to go to our Seat Guru. And we're going to click at the top here where it says Find Seat Maps. And go to Garuda. Flight 88, I think it was. And we're on September 14th. Okay, it doesn't have a map, so we don't know if it's flatbed or not. So we're just gonna leave it, except that I've called them before to ask them, because it wouldn't tell me on here. So I've called them on the phone before to ask them. And therefore, I already know that that one's a flatbed. So I'm going to put it in there. In your case, you would either leave it blank or you would call them and ask them. It's okay if you leave it blank if you're not sure. Okay, this one, KLM, I know from experience is flatbed, so I'm just going to put it in there. I've done enough quotes to know which airlines are flatbed or not. If you want to check it, you just go KLM Flight 685. And you just go over here to KLM Flight 685. And that one's the next day by then, perhaps, because they've flown all night, but they're the same beds every day, so it doesn't matter. Amsterdam to Mexico City. Notice how they have economy and premium economy. That's not business. So then the only cabin in the front, there's only one cabin in the front, so that's automatically business class. They call it world something or other. It's business class. It says 180 degrees recline, so that's the one we're after. We're after the front cabin if there's only one cabin in the front. If there's two cabins in the front, we're after the second cabin. But there's only one premium cabin in the front. This other one in the back is economy, and this is premium economy. So that means the only one in the front has to be called business class. And so it's a flatbed, and so that we have that in there. Okay, so now we need to get from Mexico City to Guatemala City. So to do that, we go to Matrix, and this time we're not going to use miles because it's just a short 2-hour flight. And we already checked previously and found out it was not available for miles on Air France. We found out that we're going to have to buy this little piece. And this is on, let's go make sure what date it arrives. So this one gets there at 8:30 in the morning on the 14th, leaves at 2:30. It's still September 14th, and it gets there at 6:55 p.m. Otherwise, it would say it arrives September 15th here. So it gets there at 7 p.m. We need at least 2.5 to 3 to 4 hours connection time to go get the luggage and check in for the next flight. So we need something that leaves at least 9:30 p.m. So let's go look. Mexico City to Guatemala. We can put our preferred times here. We want a late flight. And we just economy is okay because it's just a short 2-hour flight, so we're fine. So we want the latest one. There's 9:30. I can click departure time here and sort by departure time. And the latest one is 9:30, so we'll take this 9:30 one to give the most time to get the luggage, because they have to recheck their luggage if it's a separate ticket. So I'm going to copy this pretty flight. I'm going to notice the price is $386.18. So the price of $386.18 is in here, $386.18, and that's from Mexico to Guatemala City, and it's in this extra flights section right here. Extra flights. That means extra flights that we had to buy with money that we could not buy with miles. You click to expand it, you type in the cities, put in the price, and this is always for one person. If there's 2 people flying, you still only put the price for one person. Just like up here, even though there's 2 people flying, it's the miles and the taxes for one person because we split it. Down here, we don't have to split it because we already just got the price for one person from Matrix anyway. Here it is right here. We just put in one person. If it said there was 2, we would just take the price for one, put the price for one into the award calculator. So then we're going to paste that pretty flight in here. Click to the right of there, make the black line flash, hit enter, hit Control V to paste it in, save itinerary. Okay, and let's make sure we got the right dates. Whoops, we have September 1. So we want September 14 and we want Thursday. We can edit that if we need to. If we accidentally got the wrong one from Matrix, you can just edit that. It gets there Thursday, September 14th at 6:55, leaves Thursday, September 14th at 9:30, and it's in economy. Okay. And the reason we're going to leave it economy is that we're buying this from Matrix for money, and it has nothing to do with miles. So in this itinerary, the first flight we're buying with money, then all the rest of the flights we're buying with miles from Air France, and then this last one we're buying with money from Aeromexico. Okay. I'm just looking at this. This would be a lot easier if this was an Aeromexico flight, so they wouldn't have to change their luggage again. Let me see if we can change this one to an Aeromexico flight, if possible, on this September 1. Say it again.
Yeah, I do have a question regarding the if you're going to buy it in Matrix. How much is the minimum amount or the maximum amount for the flight that we can buy in Matrix?
It doesn't matter, just whatever it costs, that's what you put in. Obviously, you try and get the one that costs the least, but you also...
So we can choose for the economy class or the
Yes.
cheapest
Yes, as long as it's just a short, 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour flight, and you're just using it to complete the trip. See, because when we searched on Air France, they didn't have it available from Guatemala City. They only had it available from Mexico City. Well, the man lives in Guatemala City. He's got to get to Mexico City somehow. And I don't have it available for him from Air France or using miles. So I've got to go to Matrix to find out how much it's going to cost to just buy it. So what I'm doing right now is I'm checking on this one to see if there's something that we can get that's on Aeromexico. In fact, I can put advanced routing codes and I can put AM plus, which means I only want to see Aeromexico flights. The reason I want an Aeromexico flight is because it's the same airline he's flying on and he won't have to change his luggage, but it doesn't look like there is one. Let's try that again. I'm trying to find him a nonstop from Guatemala City to Mexico City that's on Aeromexico, so that it'll be the same airline that he's flying on to China. Yeah, this one's the better one. Okay, this is Aeromexico. It's better to have the same airline if you can. So I'm going to copy this one. It's the same price as that other one. So we'll just put this one in the quote instead. It's still $423 anyway. See, I've got $424 in here. It's the same price, and but it's a better. I'm going to get rid of this one and put in the Aeromexico one, because that way it's the same airline. They don't have to recheck their luggage again in Mexico City. And that's just economy, but the airline will check their luggage all the way through because it's the same airline. They can just show them both tickets and they'll check it all the way through. Okay, and notice he gets there at 10 p.m. and that's plenty of time for him to get to this 2 a.m. flight. So you want to leave at least 3 hours if you can. Minimum 2.5 hours, but better to have 3 hours. This one we only have 2.5 hours, but it's the same alliance, so he won't have to recheck his luggage, and 2.5 hours is almost 3 hours, so we're okay there. So all of these flights are the same airline alliance. Air France, KLM, Garuda, Aeromexico, those are all part of the same airline alliance. And if they're this part of the same airline alliance, they can check their luggage all the way through just by showing both tickets. So that's why we don't necessarily have to leave the full 3 hours here, because he's not going to be rechecking his luggage. He's going to be able to just go from this plane to that plane without rechecking his luggage. So 2.5 hours is plenty of time. Okay, so what did we do? We used KVS to find out the airline to use. We found out it was Air France. We went to Air France and found out how many miles it is. It's 100,000 each way plus tax. So in the award calculator for one person, it's 200,000 miles plus tax. We found out to get to Mexico City, we have to buy some flights from Matrix. We got this one and we got this one. We added these in. So the award calculator is adding up what these miles are worth, what the taxes are worth for one person. They're adding up which each of these connecting flights are worth for one person. Then we're going to add our standard $400 profit. When I put 400 in here, it came out to an odd amount, $49.82. I'd rather have it come out to about $49.95. So I'm going to add another $15 to the yellow box and make it roughly $49.95, okay? And that's going to be the selling price of the ticket, because it adds up what the miles are worth for one person, the taxes for one person, connecting flight for one person, the other connecting flight for one person, the $400 GP, which is the profit that the company makes if they buy this. Then you adjust the GP to make this price come out to about $95, $98, $99. So I put $415 instead of $400 to make it come out to $49.97. You adjust this $400 either up or down to make this come out to something close to $95, $97, $98, etc. Okay, then you hit this middle blue button, Export XML, to make all this stuff show up at the bottom. Click the white area to get your mouse into that box. Hit Control A to highlight it all, Control C to copy it all. Then go to your quote, and we've already got the itinerary, so we'll make sure that's saved. And then we'll go up here to the financial information. Click this blue button, Control V to paste it in this box at the top, hit OK. And then he lives in Guatemala, so we want Guatemalan currency here, but you don't pick Guatemalan currency right off the bat as your first choice. Pick something else you do not want, like Japanese yen, and then look for the Guatemala currency. So we're going to go down here and see if it has Guatemala on here, and it doesn't. Whenever it doesn't have what you're looking for, then you go to dollars. But you don't go straight to dollars. You go to something else first that you don't want, and then go to what you do want, the US dollars. Okay. By the way, this is giving me an error, so I'm going to do something here. I'm going to show you what to do when it gives you an error. Watch when it, see how that pop-up comes up, unavailable error. Let me see if it'll let me copy that. Unavailable error. So because there's an error on this screen, you move it to where it can be seen. Then you click this feedback button. It's not, let me see if it's letting me click it while that error is showing. It's not, so I'm going to have to close that and then click it. So I'm going to put on here. So you click this when you see an error and you know for sure that it's not just you, ask me about it and say, is this a true error? If I say, yeah, that's a true new error, be sure and click the feedback button. So you click the feedback button. The subject is unavailable, unexplained error when choosing currency, end quote. And just explain, a box pops up, a box pops up, I can't type, a box pops up, which I cannot take a picture of because it locks my screen when I'm trying to choose the currency in financial info of quote editor. Okay, and it wants the quote ID, which is 31878. I don't know if you see it over here, right there. And it won't let me do this pop-up. The pop-up says unavailable error. Okay, then you click send feedback, but you only do that if you talk to me and I tell you to do it, because otherwise it might just be your error or something that you're doing wrong. But I'm not doing anything wrong, so I'm going to report that to our programmer. See, when I try and click a currency, it gives me that error, unavailable error. But I can still go ahead anyway. Okay, so you click what you do not want first, then US dollars. Why do we have US dollars here and here both? Because the Guatemalan currency is not in the list. There's nothing to pick here for Guatemala. So I'm forced to go to something I do not want, then go to what I do want, which is US dollars. Okay, so it's going to give the price in US dollars and in US dollars instead of in Guatemalan currency. Here's my Air France miles and my taxes and my extra flights and everything explained down here. And you want to write down the GP, which is right here, the 415. That 415 is also in what we call the math line. It's right here again. But anyway, write that down because you're going to need to know it later, what your GP was on this. And then hit save quote. Okay, so the steps that we've done the request workflow checklist, and I'm doing this for Meilani. So this one is done now. So we're going to put sent, oops, what did I do wrong? Sent AF quote, submit. Okay, so this one's done. We sent AF. We tried Air Canada, was not available, so we used KVS and found out Air France is available. We made a quote. We're about to send it. Okay, we've got our financial info that came from the award calculator, that came from over here. We put in the how many Air France miles for two. We split it because it covers two people. We put in the cash flights for one person, cash flight back for one person. Those are just the connections to connect up with the Air France flights. We used 400 here and adjusted it so that this price came out to 95 or 98 or so. Then we hit this middle export XML button. We clicked in this white area. We hit Control A to highlight it, Control C to copy it. Then we came over here to the quote, and we hit, let me save this first. We hit this financial info button, and then we clicked on this blue import button, and then we imported it, and then we put its US dollars. We need to put the retail price, and if you don't know the retail price, just estimate it 2,000 higher than what we're selling it for. $69.97.89. The reason I don't know the retail price is that I couldn't get all these flights all at once from Matrix. But if I just go to Matrix and just put in any old airline, Guatemala City to Singapore, whoops, reverse route, Guatemala City to Singapore, normally it'll come out a couple $1,000s higher than what we're quoting it. So if I put in round trip here, and I'm just doing an experiment to see, so leaving September 2nd, coming back, no special times on the flights, coming back September 14th. I'm just fishing around to see what I think is a fair retail price, but I don't have to do this. I can just guess 2,000 higher than what we're selling it for. So I'm going to leave this checked. I'm going to leave this US dollars and hit search. Let me see what he would have paid if he had never called us. There's not even any flights here. Let's see. Oh, nonstop, that's why. Okay, we don't want nonstop. We want no limit. So what could he have bought a flight for if he never called us? Well, in the first place, we got to skip all the ones that go through the US because he doesn't want to do that. Again, you don't have to get this detailed on the competitive price. I'm just doing it to show you. You can just guess a price that's $2,000 higher than what we're quoting. So the cheapest he could get it would be $52.60. Oh, look at that. Guatemala. Emirates. We haven't tried that one yet. Oh, I see. It goes to LA. So we can't use that because he doesn't want to go to LA. So this $52.60 is irrelevant. This United goes to US. That's irrelevant. So the cheapest he can buy this for from anybody is $6,900 on a Chinese airline because he doesn't want to go through the LA. So the competitive price is $6,900. But I could have just guessed. See, look at that. I guessed 2,000 higher. I guessed $69.97. So I'm gonna guess 6,900. So I was pretty close just making it 2,000 higher. You can just make it 2,000 higher, or you can go and see what the real price is, but it doesn't really matter because this is the true price right here, because he would skip all of these because they go through the US and he doesn't want to do that. Okay, so you have to put in a retail price, meaning what you think or what you guess he would have paid if he never called us. Usually that's 2,000 more than what he pays from us. Rough estimate. Sometimes it's only 500 more, sometimes 1,000, sometimes 3,000. But if you're not sure, just guess at 2,000 and it's close enough. You can guess at the retail price, but you never guess at any other prices, only the retail price. Okay, now let's say I saved this thing twice and I don't realize I already saved it. It'll give me this weird pop-up box that has all this complicated stuff. When you see that, that's good news. That means you've already saved it. You don't need to save it again. It's just telling you there's nothing new to save. That's what this complicated box means. There's nothing new to save. If I hit save again, it's going to pop up that weird box again. It's just saying there's nothing to save. If I change something in here, change this to 90 cents and then save it, it'll let me save it because there's something new. It's not going to give me that weird box. It's saved at that time. Okay, I'm just going to make this the same penny so that the comparison price comes out even. So what I need to answer a customer. Just a second. I need to answer an email that I just saw pop up. Let me see when he's flying so I know how much time I have to get him his seat assignments. He's anxious for his seat assignments. Oh, he's not flying until December. So that's his e-ticket receipt. So I'm just going to tell him I'll get him to him within a couple days. I just wanted to answer him right away because he just bought a ticket from us. I wanted him to get a good answer. I'm going to write myself a note. Weber needs seat assignments. As a quoter, you don't have to do that. a different function I have here that I do that you don't need to do. So ignore that. Okay, where were we? We were doing a quote, and we got everything ready to go. And I'm just kind of reviewing with you. So we did step 1, we put in the checklist that we've finished it. Step 2, we've got that. We got the retail price, which you can estimate if you need to. This price you don't estimate. It comes from the award calculator. The itinerary, we have all of our legs. We double check that the dates all mean something. So he's leaving September 1st at night. His main flight is on September 2nd. Then September 14th, he leaves at 1:30 in the morning, gets there at 8:30, leaves at 2:30, gets there at 7, leaves at 9:30. So everything's good. Okay, we're ready to send it. So we'll quote send. This first screen that comes up that has all this complicated stuff, you don't touch it. Remember, whenever you see a complicated screen, it's good news, but don't touch it. Instead, you hit preview and send. And this is the actual quote that you're sending now. And in the actual quote, there's 3 things you need to do before you send it. The first thing you do is we're going to give you a paragraph to copy. If you're quoting for Donald, you get the one with Donald's phone number. If you're quoting for Terry, you get the one with Terry's phone number and then take out Donald. We're quoting for Donald right now, so we're going to get the paragraph that has Donald's phone number in it. And if you're not sure who you're quoting for, go to your pop-up again, which will be at your Chrome, and click the pop-up to bring it back. It's just a Chrome window, so if you lose track of it, just point to Chrome and it'll be one of those windows. If you're not sure who you're quoting for, slide down here and look. Oh, I'm quoting for Donald. So therefore, I want to make sure that this phone number of Donald's right there is in the quote at the top also, so that people notice it. So you paste a paragraph in there that explains to them that they're not earning miles. You will not be earning miles on this trip. And it has Donald's name and phone number at the end of it. Okay, so that's the first thing you do when you're making a quote, in the pop-up before you send it. Put in that paragraph and make sure it has the phone number that matches the name that's at the bottom. There's the phone number right there that matches Donald. Okay, the second thing you do is copy the US dollar price from that right there. Always the US dollar price. And you paste it in the subject line instead of what's there. Then you make it so the word dollars is spelled out, US dollars, and then it's business class all the way, so we'll tell them that. Okay, and the third thing you do is go to the very bottom, click to the right of the signature, and hit the enter key. That'll put your cursor at the very bottom. Then you put in the first part of your login, which is your first name and your last initial, or it might be a misspelling of your first name, but it's pretty close to your first name and your last initial. Like we have one agent whose name is Charles. I think, Charles, you're watching, and I think yours is C-H-A-L-E-S without the R. So you would put that here. You would put C-H-A-L-E-S without the R. And if that's your login, I'm not sure if that's the same Charles or not. But if it is, then yours is, I think it's, let me go see what yours is just for fun. And I'm not going to really use this one. I'm just explaining to Charles which one he should use. Let me just look at this a minute. Because I'm not sure if it's misspelled or if it's spelled right, but anyway, it's got to be spelled the same all the time. Okay, so yours is C-H-A-L-E-S-M, Charles. C-H-A-L-E-S-M. Yours will always be like that and exactly like that. Don't ever put the R in there. Don't ever put your middle name. It's just C-H-A-L-E-S-M, and you leave off the at fcda.co right here. And then we search for 2 seats, and I'm not going to leave this code because it's not who's doing this quote. And remember, we wrote down the GP, which is 415. If the GP was 400, you replace the zeros with G's, and it would be 4GG if it was 400. Well, with capital G's, 4GG. If it was 450, it would be 45G. If it was 500, it would be 5GG. Okay, but it's not 400 or any of those others. It's 415, so you don't put any G's at all. It's just 415. And this quote is actually being done by May. So let me see what her code is so that I can get it right. I'm doing it for her as a demonstration. So let me go get the right code for May just to make sure I do it right. 1 second. That's the first part of her login. Usually it's your first name and your last initial, but let me see how it is exactly, because you have to do it exactly the same all the time. Where is it? Let's see. Here we go. Found it. Okay, so I'm going to have to play around with this a little bit. Oops, that's not it. Hold on a minute. I'll just type it in here instead of trying to copy it. It's M-A-Y-L-A-N-I-E-A. Okay, so May, yours is always that for your code down here. And those of you that don't know your code, it's the first part of your login without the @ symbol, all the way up to the @ symbol. Like her login is this. That's her login. But we take away the @fcda.co to use as the code, and you just put a hyphen there instead. If I accidentally made that a link, I need to get rid of that link. Okay. Edit link. Let's accidentally put a link in there. So that removed the link. Okay, and so you just want 1 dash, by the way. So you put the first part of your login, which is usually your first name and your initial, or some variation of that, then a hyphen, then how many seats you search for. Even though we searched for 2 seats, this price is still for 1 person, and this price is for 1 person. Everything is for 1 person. The GP is for 1 person, 415 GP for 1 person. The only reason this 2 is here is to let the salesperson know that if they want to buy 2 seats, there are 2 seats available to buy. But if they want to buy 2 seats, it's going to be twice this price. And the GP is going to also end up being twice as much because there's 2 people. But everything is per person, per person, per person, per person, per person. The only thing the 2 means is if they want to buy 2, there are 2 available. But none of the pricing covers 2 people. It's always per person. So again, the 3 things to do when you bring up a quote. And by the way, let's say this quote disappears and I wonder what happened to it. Oh, where'd it go? I just go down and point to Chrome, and it'll be one of my Chrome windows, and I can hit it and it'll come back again. Okay. Now, there's 3 things you do to it. Put the US dollar price up here, put this paragraph with the correct salesperson's phone number, and then put your code down here, which is the first part of your login, hyphen how many seats you search for, how much, hyphen how much the GP is for 1 person. GP for 1 person, price for 1 person, price for 1 person, everything's 1 person, except for that little 2 means there's 2 seats for sale. Okay, so now I'm ready to send this. I click send. It says it's been sent successfully. I click close. Now this window's still here. Let's say I answer the phone, go eat breakfast, come back, and this is still on my screen. And I'm wondering, did I send this? If I'm not sure I sent it, you do not send it again. Do not send quotes a second time. Don't do it. Instead, if you're not sure if you sent it, close it, and then go up here to the top of the quote and hit the F5 key to refresh, or you can hit your refresh button on your computer and wait and see if that word researching changed to sent automatically all by itself. If it changed to sent automatically all by itself without you changing it, then you know the quote is sent. If you hit the F5 key to refresh your screen, or you click the refresh button up here in the corner, and it still says researching, then you know, uh-oh, I didn't actually send it. If that's the case, you go back to quote send and do it all over again and send it. But if it changes to sent all by itself, that means you sent it. But the problem is when you had that pop-up open, you could have hit send again and it would have sent it again. And that's not good for the customer to get two quotes, one after another, that are exactly the same, because it'll make them both go to a spam. That's not good. If you're not sure if you sent it, close it, come back here, hit refresh, and see if it changes to sent already all by itself automatically. If it did, you sent it. It's done. So once it's sent, we can still go back in and look at things and see, you know, how we did, but we can't send it again. It won't let you click send again once you've closed that pop-up. When that pop-up is still open, it will let you send it again, but don't do that. Okay, anybody have any questions? So that's basically how to add a connection city using a cache flight from Matrix. It's what to do if you can't find your flights all the way through as Matrix. You can search them in pieces. You can add them to the quote in pieces. Remember, we searched this first flight on Matrix and got it for cash for about $400. The rest of those flights, we searched them one at a time if we had to. We saw that there was a hidden stop in this one, but we went by what Matrix said, because that's accurate. We go by what the reward website says when it comes to the class of service, but in terms of, you know, the flight number and whether it makes an extra stop or not, we go by what Matrix says. And then some of these flights, I had to go get them individually and paste them in individually. This last flight is a cache flight that I got from Matrix. Cache flights that you get from Matrix that are 2, 3, 4 hours, you can use economy if you want to. If business class is almost the same price, then use business class. If it's only $100 more for business class, then use business class. But in this case, the business class was about $800 and the economy was $400. So it's a $400 savings here and another $400 savings here. That makes the ticket cost $800 less, and he's going to be willing to fly in economy for 2 hours to save $800. Do you see what I mean? Okay, I'm just kind of repeating myself to see if you have any questions. So if you have a question, unmute yourself and ask me, or you can type the question in Skype if you need to. I'm just going to stop for a minute and give you a chance to think if you have any questions. So give me a second.
Hello, Donald. Can I leave the meeting? I want to create my own code.
Sure, that's fine. You bet.
By the way, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you can come to the meeting or exit anytime you want, no problem.
Okay, anyway, thank you for doing my code.
You're
That's
welcome.
one is really hard.
Okay. And by the way, May, I recorded it, so tomorrow it'll be on the recording and it'll say AF training and it'll say the 27th of February, because where I am, it's still the 27th of February.
Okay, I will just download it later.
So you can go back and watch it again if you want to. It'll be in the library.
Okay.
I'm also right now making it so that each of you can record the rest of this meeting if you want to see how to fix your log on if it ever has a problem. Charles, I'm going to make it so that we can see your screen.
Sure. I think I can share it on my screen here.
Yeah, go ahead and click share. And then it'll switch over. We'll be looking at your screen pretty soon.
Here.
Okay.
Did you see?
Yeah, I need to make sure that I'm recording the right screen. Let's see. Hold on a minute. Yeah, I think it's automatically going to record your screen. Okay. So let me see. It says it's a closed system. Okay, so the first thing we have to do when you have this problem is first go to your 3 bars at the top right of Chrome and go to settings.
I think you need to update the browser.
Okay.
This is already done.
Yeah, actually Google, I believe Google, yeah, okay, that's fine. Okay, then go to settings again on the far left. And Okay, see where it says sign into Chrome? So first of all, before you sign in, click on continue where you left off. Go down about 2 inches. Continue where you left off and always show bookmarks. So yeah, you want to have those two turned on all the time. And then click on sign into Chrome. And copy and paste that name we gave you, which is CHALES, I think. Yeah, okay. And then the password is, that doesn't look like the right password. Did it work?
I already changed it.
Oh, you already changed. Okay, so put
Yeah.
in your new password there and next. Okay, and then just wait a minute. If it asks if you want to link data, say yes, I want to link data. So, yeah, okay, got it. If it says, do you want to link data? Then say yes, I do. Okay, so now you're logged into Chrome with your work email. Okay, and so now go to a new tab and click on Mail at the top right of your screen. And let's make sure you're also logged into Gmail with your new, okay, you are. And so now go to your shortcut for AMS on the far left. Actually, hit F5 to refresh it. Okay, now hit login and then new. See the, okay, so it's saying it's a closed system. Okay, now it could be that, let's see, you're at agent.firstclassdiscountair.com, right? Yep, you are.
Yes.
Okay, it could be that something is spelled wrong somewhere. Let me go check with the programmer because your R is missing out of your name. And I asked him before if that was on purpose, and he said yes, but it's not working, right? So maybe.
Yes.
But it let you, let me think for a minute. It let you log into Google, so it is right, and it let you log into Gmail, so we know it's right.
Yes.
So let me think about why this is saying this. Okay, so let me ask the programmer why yours isn't working. Hold on a minute.
Sure.
Well, let's try one thing first. Go to your Chrome and delete your history and your cookies. So go to the 3 bars at the top right.
I think you
Click the 3
This is the one?
bars. Yeah, let me see. So click everything except not passwords and not automatic fill-in stuff. Click everything but not the passwords and not the automatic fill-in. No, uncheck the automatic fill-in. So you want to delete everything but not passwords and not automatic fill-in, and click for all time, not just the past hour, but at the top all time. Okay, and then clear browsing data. Okay, and I think it did it, right?
Yes.
Okay, so then go to AMS again, and let's try it again after we did that. You just hit, yeah, just try again. Okay, so I've got to ask the programmer what's wrong. So let me get, just a second, I'm going to talk to him right now through Skype.
And Donald, I'm
Yeah.
also getting the same error as Charles. This is Gwen.
Oh, okay, all right. And you did the same thing we just did? You've cleared your cookies?
Yes, I
You
followed.
You logged into Chrome and Gmail?
Yes.
After I ask him, I'll probably remember what I should have told you, but I don't remember right now, so I'm asking him. Okay, it says he's online. Okay. Well, let's see what he says about it. And I'll also think about it and think what I can do. I'm going to pause the recording while we work on this to try and figure it out. There's a question that's been asked about getting Etihad flights. And the answer is you can either get Etihad flights directly from Etihad's website and just ask Donald for the link and I'll give it to you. Or you can get them from ANA or you can get them from Alitalia. You usually do not want to get them from the Etihad website unless it's your last resort because it's expensive. The best way to get them is to get them from ANA, which is the same thing as All Nippon, which is the same thing as NH. Those three names are all the same airline, NH, All Nippon, or ANA. And this is the best place to get Etihad flights. The second best place to get Etihad flights is from Alitalia, which is an Italian airline. And if they have the Etihad flights being offered on their website, it's also a really good way to get them. In fact, I would say that's the first best way to get them is to get them from Alitalia. And then the second best way to get them would be, I think, from ANA. And the third best would be get them from Etihad. So if you can get them from Alitalia, I think it's going to be the best for you if they're available. If they're not available from Alitalia, then try ANA. If they're not available there, then try Etihad directly. But the price is going to go up as you go through those. I think the cheapest is going to be Alitalia, then ANA, then Etihad. And to find out if you're wasting your time, the first thing you do if you're thinking about Etihad flights is to go to KVS. Let's say that this guy that we were working on that wanted to go from Mexico City, let's say he was willing to go through the United States, and therefore we were going to have him go from LA to Singapore. And you click on Etihad down here at the bottom, which is EY. And over here, we're going to click on Etihad down at the bottom for the return. And that'd be Singapore back to LA because that's where they fly to. And then you'd have to get a connecting flight for the rest of it. But you don't even bother going to ANA or Alitalia or Etihad unless it shows available here in KVS first. And the way it would show available in KVS here, it would either be FS Plus or CS Plus. Or it could be FS and a number. Like over here, there's 2 first class seats available and 9 business class seats available and 9 economy seats. Y is economy, C is business class, F is first class. So the homeward trip is available, Singapore to LA on the 14th of September, but we didn't use it for that guy because he didn't want to change planes in the United States because he doesn't have a visa for the United States. So the outbound is not available. So you'd have to go a day earlier perhaps, or else we could use a different airline for the outbound and use Etihad for the return. So it's not available. It's FS minus, CS minus. That means it's not available. But let's say it was available, then you would use KVS to find out that Etihad is available, but it doesn't tell you how many miles it is. I'm looking for a day that is available, just for an example. The return is available in both first class and business class, but the outbound, we're not finding anything. So let's say we did find something. Once you find something in KVS, your first best next step would be to go to alitalia.com and see if it's available there. Then go to ANA and see if it's available there, and then go to Etihad if you have to, which is the most expensive one, and get it from there. Usually it's available for Etihad, it just costs a lot more. So you want to try and use Alitalia first, ANA second, and Etihad directly third. I didn't find anything for the outbound, but this is what you use KVS for, to find out, is it available? If it's not available, there's no reason to go to the website to check and see how many miles it is. It's not available anyway. So if it says it's not available in KVS, that means don't bother going to the website to look it up, because it's not going to be there. The purpose of KVS is to find out what's available. The purpose of the reward website is to find out how many miles and taxes it's going to cost us, so we know how much to sell it for. Another useful reason to use KVS is when you're checking a lot of different dates, like what I'm doing on the left-hand side here. I just keep hitting the up arrow looking for a date that is available. So you use KVS to check different dates to see what's available. If it's a fixed date and you know they have to go on that same date, like over here on the right, I could check a bunch of different airlines for the same date. So you use KVS to check a bunch of different airlines for the same date, or you use it to check one airline but for a bunch of different dates. So you're either checking one airline a bunch of different dates, or you're checking one particular date because the date's fixed and they're not flexible, and you're just checking all the different airlines to see who has that date available. That's what we did with that last Air France quote. His date wasn't flexible, so we went down all the way through all these, and we ended up at Air France and found out, oh, here it is. And it so happened that the return was also available on Air France. You don't have to do the outbound and the return on the same airline. In your what do you call it, the award calculator, you can put, the outbound as Air France. Maybe it's only 100,000 miles for the outbound and 250 tax. And then maybe you're going to get the return from Etihad. And let's say the Etihad is maybe 120,000 miles, and maybe it's 350 tax. So you can go one way on Air France miles and another way on Etihad miles. You can combine two different airlines like that. And then that would have made the ticket, a lot more expensive, because Etihad's a lot more expensive than Air France. Okay. Melani's asking at the Etihad website, what do you pick? Guest business, business classic, or business flex? And you just pick the cheapest one, the one that is available using the least miles. Preferably guest business, if available. So on the Etihad website, you use guest business, business class, business flex, but the one you should pick is the one that's available using the least miles. The reason that there's three different ones is that as the plane gets more full, they start charging more and more miles for the same flight. When it's not very full, you can find it available in guest business, which is kind of like CS Plus on KVS. It means it's C is business class, S is super cheap or saver, and plus means available. That's the same thing as guest business. It's business class, it's super cheap, it's available. And if it's CS Plus on KVS, usually you're going to find it under guest business in Etihad. If it's not CS Plus on KVS, you might still be able to get it from Etihad anyway at a higher price by using more miles by going with Business Classic. And Business Flex is usually too expensive. It comes out to be more than retail. So we usually don't use that. So actually, there's a reason to go to the Etihad website anyway. If you really need that flight badly to complete a reservation, you don't care what the price is because it's the only other flight you need. Maybe it's only a short flight, so it's not all that big of a deal. Then you can get stuff on the Etihad website that's not CS Plus in KVS, because the CS Plus is talking about the guest business. If it says CS Plus or CS9 or CS2 or FS2, then that's saying it's available at the cheapest price, which is called guest business or guest first class. And that's why it's the least miles, and that's because it's CS Plus. This one over here that doesn't have CS Plus, you could probably still get it from the Etihad website if you're willing to pay one of these higher prices. And you are willing to pay one of the higher prices if it's only part of the trip, and therefore you're still going to be able to beat the Matrix retail price. But if you use all guest flex or business flex, you're never going to beat the retail price of Matrix. You're wasting your time. If you use maybe partly Business Classic and partly a different airline, or partly Business Classic and partly guest business, you might be okay. But most of the time, it's only going to beat retail if you can find it all the way in guest business. That's what you're really after. Okay, let me go see if Mark answered yet. He didn't, so we're stuck on your logins. I wonder if there's anything that I can do to, let me go check and see if there's anything in here that it lets me do to, no, I don't think so. I don't think there's anything I can do to fix it. I think we have to wait for Mark. See, it says this is only for Mark to do. Yeah, that's okay. So any other questions? Just in like 5 minutes, I'm going to give you if you don't have any questions, I'm going to give you a quick overview of the whole company. So this is our main website, First Class Discount Air. And we also have another website called flyersmiles.com. That's where the leads come from. The leads come from 4 different places, basically. They come from this website, flyersmiles.com. People are typing in a specific trip that they want to price on. They also come from this website. They also come from the live chat on this website and the live chat on the other website, and also phone calls. So I guess that's really 5 different ways that we get leads. Phone calls, the 2 different websites, and the 2 different live chat buttons. When they do fill in a flight request, it comes in here, to which we call the lead picker. And you as a quoter don't need to do this, but the salespeople do. They go in and pick, okay, here's one, to work on. This guy's been waiting 4 hours for his quote, so that's one that I'll pick to, hurry up and work on it. And if someday you ever become one of our salespeople, you would be able to pick a quote like that. Then you'd go in here and find his request, the one that we just picked. And you don't have to do this as a quoter. This is something you'd do if you eventually became one of our salespeople. And you click on this and see what he wants, make sure all the information is there. He wants to go from Sao Paulo, Brazil to Amsterdam. The dates are there. Oh, looks like his date's flexible. Oh, that's weird. Really flexible. And then the salesperson would mark it to be quoted. And the salesperson would also try and call him to clarify things. But we have to see what time it is in Brazil. It's too late to call Brazil right now. It's 3 in the morning. So then the salesperson would go into the client info and mark it to be called tomorrow morning. So in the meantime, though, we'll send him a quote for the best we can do. So you'll see if you have a login, you'll see this one on your quotes needed list now. And you'll also sometimes see it show up in Skype as one to work on. For example, let's see, where is the... So then you'll look in your Skype and there's the request. Okay, and then that's how it gets on your quoting list. When you go to your quoting list and look at it, it's going to be here under quotes needed, and it won't be at the top. In your quotes needed, the ones at the top are the ones that say pending requote, and those are older ones that are waiting for you to check and make sure that they've been requoted to the new information. And if you want to look at one of the new ones, you have to go down here until it doesn't say pending requote anymore. It'll say pending quote. And that one that we just picked will be somewhere near the top. Here he is right here. That's the one that we, no, that's not the one we picked. What did we pick? Ferreo, let me see, where is he? Maybe I need to refresh my screen first. Let me hit F5 to see if he shows up. So if you're a quoter, and you are, and you want to find that guy's name, you click this magnifying glass down here, put his name in here, and it should pop up, and there he is. Okay, it says new. Nobody's worked on it yet because this number is 0. It'll change to 1, 2, 3, 4, depending on how many people have attempted it. So nobody's attempted this one yet, otherwise it'd be a number here. And I'm not going to click new because I don't want to start a new quote on it. Just showing you where it is here. If you get that error on the currency, it's not a big deal. You can just keep on quoting, just keep on going, because it's not really affecting anything that I can see. So I don't think it's a problem. Just keep on quoting. Each of you should, well, let's see. No, if you have problems, tell me, and then I'll tell Mark, because a lot of you are not connected to him in Skype yet, so I'll be the go-between on that. Okay, so that kind of explains it. We have 3 different jobs available here. One job is a quoter, which is what you're training for. Later on, if you feel comfortable with it, if you want to advance, you could advance to being a quoter and a telemarketer, both. The telemarketer gets paid extra, of course, for making phone calls. And then there's a third position, which is a regular salesperson. Our salespeople are called luxury flight consultants. And a luxury flight consultant does all 3, quoting, calling, and selling. So eventually, if you wanted to get into that, that's another, income also. The quoters make $1 for each quote in US dollars, which is about 50 pesos for each quote, Philippine pesos. And most people can do about 200 quotes every 2 weeks, about 100 quotes a week. So it comes out to about 10,000 pesos every 2 weeks, or about 20,000 pesos a month if you work at it full time as a quoter. If you're also a telemarketer, then on top of that, you also get 10 cents a minute, which I think is 5 pesos. Am I doing that right? Let's see. I think it's 5 pesos per minute. Let me see if I'm doing that right. Yeah, you get 5 pesos per minute. So 5 times 60, that's about 300 pesos an hour for the amount of time that you're actually connected talking to a customer or an airline. It counts your talk time. If you're actually connected and talking to a customer or an airline, then you get 5 pesos a minute, which is about 5 times 60, 300 pesos per hour that you're actually connected in Philippine pesos. That's on top of your quoting income. And if you're a salesperson, then on top of that, you let's see, the salesperson doesn't get paid for the talk time. They just get paid per quote. The 50 pesos per quote, plus they get 5% of the GP if it sells. So if you eventually become a salesperson, you get 50 pesos for each quote you send, plus 5% of the GP if they end up buying it. As a regular quoter, when you're getting paid 50 pesos per quote, it doesn't matter if they buy it or not. You get paid just because you sent the quote. It doesn't require that they buy it for you to get paid. You get paid $1 for every quote that you successfully send, which works out to about 50 pesos for every quote you send, which works out to, if you work full time, you can earn 10,000 pesos every 2 weeks, or about 20,000 pesos a month just doing quotes. Let's see. Let me see 1 second. She's saying, somebody's asking me a question about this last one that I just sent. Looks like there's a, looks like there's a mistake here. They put the 2nd of February. The flexibility it shows right here, it says plus or minus 180 days, which is 6 months. So he just wants to get a general price, it sounds like, because his dates are so flexible. Answering a couple other questions in Skype. I'm going to turn off the recording because we're just about done for this lesson, and I'll still stay here if you have some more questions.